Welcome back to episode 3 of Back to Basics. If you missed the last episode, there should be a pop-up to watch that now. Anyways, let's get into it. In this video, we're going to cover what split pushing actually is, how to split push effectively, as well as when is the most ideal time to split push. So what is split pushing? Split pushing is when you're in a side lane and pushing past your safety point, oftentimes the river, for a specific goal, often being to draw pressure away from your team for objectives or to get turrets. But why should you even care about split pushing when you can just group with your team? Well, the answer is it's consistent strategy, it's skill based, and that's a very high impact for a top laner. Most of the pressure is put onto you when you're in a split push, which means you're fighting opponents with a numbers disadvantage while your team is often at an advantage. This means your team is much more likely to win team fights since they have a numbers advantage and it's a lot easier for them. Yes, your team will occasionally just lose despite having numbers advantage, but that's League of Legends. But the important thing is you buy them as much time as you physically can. Or if the opponents choose to ignore your split push, you just push down the lane and take as many turrets as you possibly can. Often in low elo, you can find yourself just whacking the Nexus and the enemy team doesn't even notice. In this situation, what your team should do is back off from the fight, but stay just close enough to make the enemy team think that they could engage. This way the enemy team's in a predicament. Do they go back and defend you, or do they hard push for the fight? If this does happen, I like to ping my team to back off while pinging on my way to the enemy turrets, so my team knows that I don't plan to rotate and can back off while I take turrets. This is also an extra important step if you have teleport up, because a lot of players will assume you plan to teleport into the fight once it breaks out. The most important thing in a split push is to not die, because when you die, your pressure is instantly nullified. You can see in this clip, as soon as I got ganked, I did my best to get out, even using ult. Normally playing on the edge, and thus in that situation just using Kled E and not my ult, is how I would have played it. However, because I'm on the top side and Baron is up, me dying could mean an easy Baron for the opponent, so I need to do everything I can to make sure I'm not within kill range. When split pushing, your map is your best friend. You can see here after this gank I choose to start channeling my recall, but I see two of them both start rotating towards the fight. That gives me the green light to cancel my recall and continue pushing my lane. If the opponents now chose to turn around to try and answer me again, I would instantly start backing off, but I see them start committing towards the fight and I choose to push hard. This essentially puts the enemy team on a timer. They have to answer me or they're going to lose a lot of turrets and potentially even their Nexus. But they also have to fight my team over there, otherwise they'll lose Baron. Very much a lose-lose situation for the enemy team. If they chose to send one to answer me, then my team has a clean 4v4, and what I can do is push the wave into the turret and wait for them to start farming it, and then use that time to rotate to the fight, to have a temporary 5v4. You can see here they chose to recall to answer me, and my team gets a free Baron off this. Now it's back to the 2v1 situation. I need to do everything I can to survive. Every second I can stay alive at this point is buying crucial time for my team to win a fight up there. You can see the enemy Swain was an absolute monster this game, so having the numbers advantage really helped my team in shutting him down. And here, even though I realize I'm going to die, I still use both my suns just to make sure it takes an extremely long time before they can manage to kill me, giving my team the crucial time they need to kill the Swain. This may seem like a small pick, but later it resulted in massive consequences since he was the main carry for the enemy team. Because Swain got picked, our team was able to win a 3v3 fight over Dragon and secured a Dragon. So even though I didn't manage to get a pick in the side lane, I secured a tier 2 turret which is worth more than a kill, and also, just from dying, I managed to secure a huge lead for my team. If we jump over to this Poppy game, you can see I'm 4 and 7, not exactly the strongest. Here I'm split pushing bot, which is opposite the spawning objective, Baron, in the top side. You almost always want to be opposite the main objective that's spawning to give your team the most time if people choose to collapse on you. If you watch the map, you can see Sonar and Aurora start rotating to bot side, so I instantly back off to make sure I'm safe. Then, as soon as I see them moving away from me, is when I start pushing back up again. This is the constant tug-of-war you have to do while avoiding getting picked. You have to be mindful of who has flashes and things like that as well. If you're not sure, just assume everybody has it. That way you avoid getting picked by something like a Sona Flash R. What's beneficial about being bot here is that if Hecarim tries to come and gank me, my team can collapse onto Baron and get a free Baron, because their jungle is nowhere near to smite. So when I spot Hecarim bot, I just choose to distract him and fight with him in hopes my team takes Baron. Fortunately in this clip they didn't get the memo and didn't take a free Baron, which will happen. I guess it's my bad. I probably should have pinged my intentions as well. Not everyone understands how to play split push versus 5v5, so it's always good to ping or type to your teammates what you plan to do. Something simple like I'll go bot, take Baron when they come for me, is usually my go-to. So to split push effectively, always remember to play tug of war if multiple opponents come for you. Don't risk the 2v1 if you don't have to. Always watch the map and play away from objectives. Not every champ is going to be super effective at split pushing. There's a few main things that you need to keep in mind. The first and arguably the most important is strong escape tools, followed by 1v1 pressure, turret pressure, and strong rotations. If we take Kled as an example, he has his E, which is a free targeted dash he can use to escape, as well as his ultimate if really necessary. His ultimate also provides him great rotation power, which means if someone chooses to answer Kled, he can push the wave into the turret and rotate to the fight for a free 5v4, forcing out the opponent's teleport, or even them being late to the fight if they don't have it. Let's say you're playing Ornn. You don't really have the best split push because your E is very slow and predictable, as well as it being your only dash. Beyond the demolish proc on tower, you really have very little tower threat because of your low AD and slow attack speed. You don't really have a quick way to rotate apart from TP. You also have excellent teamfight potential because of your AoE knockups. Ornn is better suited for going to side lanes just to collect waves and then grouping with his team. Obviously there's a time and a place where split push is viable regardless of your champion. But in this case, split push would never be the ideal situation for this type of champ. Whereas with someone like Kled, split push is very ideal. Let's say you are playing a strong split pusher like Kled. Do you want to split push every game? In general, my answer changes depending on the rank of the person I'm talking to. For the sake of this video, I'm going to consider Emerald and below as low elo. In low elo especially, because people don't understand macro very well and are slow to rotate, as well as being slow to secure objectives, split pushing becomes a hell of a lot more viable, and also much easier to execute. So my recommendation for these ranks would be, yes, always split push. However, once you start getting to diamond and above, things take a turn. Suddenly your split pushes start to get punished and reacted to more often, which makes determining whether you should split or not a harder task. So I want to break down some key things that I think about before I decide to split. The first and most important thing is when you are less effective in a 5v5 than your opponent is. This means forcing your opponent to stay in a side lane benefits your team more because they will have a high impact in 5v5 should you just fight in a team fight. And often teamfight based champions like Aatrox or Ornn struggle in a 1v1 because their abilities are AoE and a lot of their power budget is shifted towards that. Meaning when they're fighting in a 1v1, they actually do less damage than most other duelist type champions. Next thing is when you're significantly behind or ahead. This is contrary to what most people think. When you're behind, people think you should group with your team and hope they can carry, which is true in a sense. However, forcing a push on a side lane can be very beneficial if you manage to keep your opponent in that lane. Should you be behind, your opponent is most likely fed, which means they're very strong and will have a high impact on the team fight. So if you can manage to keep them out of that team fight and make it a clean 4v4 for your team, you're more likely to pull out the win. But just push waves or stop them from doing a split push themselves by clearing waves under your turret to keep them in the side lane as long as possible. And the second they try and leave, hard shove the wave to force them back. And the last thing I consider is if the opponents have a wombo comp. This refers to a team comp where their ults or even their base kit have very strong synergies together where they can go in and just wipe your team in one fell swoop and there's not much you can do about it. For example, a team comp that has Malphite, Amumu, and Yasuo all on the same team. Chances are if you use group for a team fight, you're just going to get wiped by Malphite Yasuo wombo with the Amumu ult. So instead of banging your head against the wall trying to win this unwinnable team fight, split push can be a viable strategy to circumvent the situation. Most of the time, split pushing starts with you just collecting a wave in the side lane. You don't want to do anything too aggressive until you know where the enemy team is. In this clip here, for example, we only have vision on Embessa, so I'm just safely farming this wave and not doing anything crazy. Setting up wards for later reference so you can keep an eye on where the team is going is also a good thing. Here I spot Victor and I just back off and let him farm the wave. While I possibly could kill him, I don't know where the jungle is or where Mbessa is, so it's a bad idea to engage on him. They could be sitting in a bush or relatively close to rotate on me. So instead I opt to just wait for the wave to push into me and safely farm it. If you keep an eye on the map, the ADC and support are accounted for mid, as well as their top laner being in bot lane. This leaves only Victor and the jungle that could potentially be on me. Then spot Kindred on Herald, so I immediately start backing off, but it looks like she's going over the Herald wall. Because I've got a nice safety net of wards, I feel confident enough to push up. Pushing like this is known as a 1-3-1, referring to how many champions are in each lane. You want to imagine a line that cuts the map. You want to stay in line with all your teammates when you're split pushing. If you're way past this line, say this Ahri was pushing up to this tier 2, she's quite vulnerable to being ganked, and if she does get ganked, none of her teammates can punish anything because we're not close enough to towers to take them in response. And thus we're left just farming a wave while she just dies for no reason. However, there are crucial timings where you should push past this line. For example, right now I see a fight breaking out mid lane, which means people are most likely to rotate to it. As well as one of their players just getting picked, which means there can only possibly be 4 on the map. And all 4 are at that fight. Now here I could potentially teleport or ult down to fight a 5v4. However, if the enemy team is smart about it, they'll potentially just back off and I'll be punished for moving. Whereas if I stay top, I can get this tier 1, as well as get some plates of the tier 2. Want to know what wins games most in League of Legends? Consistency. Key takeaway here is that yes, you could potentially rotate to that fight and get a huge lead, potentially even securing the game off it. However, staying in your top lane is guaranteed to give you a lead, even if the enemy team plays perfectly. Guaranteed gold is better than inconsistent gold. Split push equals consistency, and consistency equals wins. Now I'm going to show some examples of split pushing, and I want you to decide whether you think this is a good split push or not, and I'll explain whether it is or not afterwards. Here you can see I died to an unfortunate Kindred game where she was hiding in the bush. I arguably should have checked it. However, mistakes do happen. But is this death a really bad death or not? Here you can see that my bot lane wasn't pushed, so my Ahri wasn't in lane, and I wasn't abiding by the red line rule that I was talking about earlier. However, my team was in position to get Dragon because they sent so many top, which initially might make you think that this is an okay death. However, Baron is spawning in 13 seconds, and I'm dead for 41. This means instead of pushing to the tier 2, I probably should have recalled and headed bot, so that way I can push opposite the Baron. In lower elos, this might be a mistake that you don't notice because the enemy team doesn't exploit the fact that you're dead for so long. However, when you reach higher elos, you're going to be punished more and more often for this sort of death. In this game, for example, the enemy team takes Baron because of it, which is a terrible death. These are the type of deaths that will lose you games, and you need to try and do everything you can to avoid it. In this clip from earlier, we can see that my team is fighting mid, and the enemy ADC is dead, so I'm getting this free turret. I continue to push here, while my team is actively engaging in the fight, trying to secure picks. Here you can see I push up to get turret plates. I secure one and then I recall in the bush. Is this a good recall, or should I be whacking this turret? The answer is yes, it is a good recall. I potentially shouldn't have even got that extra turret plate as well. It was a bit greedy of me. This is because the enemy team was off the map for quite a while before I engaged this recall, which means they could be collapsing on me. And as you can see here, 2 were top, ready to kill me if I stayed for more plates. This clip here, I'm split pushing top as Poppy when Baron's up. However, you can see there's 4 mid and 1 bot, so I know I'm safe to go whack this turret for a bit. Fortunately, my Yas gets picked mid, and they start heading off into fog. Is it a good idea for me to hit this turret here, or should I recall? Well, on the surface, the answer is just to recall, because they could potentially be coming for me, and I don't have vision on them. However, I choose to just sit here and whack the turret. Why the hell did I choose to do that? Well, the answer is that Baron is up, and they just secured a pick. and I have 2 teammates bot. So the logical response for them is to take Baron, and if they actually came for me, they would be losing out on a massive lead from securing Baron for free. It would be a mistake for the enemy team to come for me there. However, this is a Baron fight, so right after the turret, I instantly pivot to rotate into the team fight and land a nice ultimate in the Hecarim, securing us the Baron. This team fight, however, is not always possible. We just happen to have very fed members in this game. We were capable of winning the fight so long as Hecarim wasn't in it, as he was the only carry for their team, and I could easily ult him away. Most likely the best bet would be to recall after that turret, depending on how the situation's going. But because we had a Silas that could use Shen ult as well as a Malphite that teleported in, we had a decent chance at winning that fight. I chose to take it instead of continuing to split or recall, which eventually worked out. The main takeaway here is actually hitting this turret though, not rotating to the fight, because this turret is worth a massive amount of gold, and also by being here you're putting pressure on the enemy team, which may make them not do the Baron and instead rotate to try and kill you, which is actually beneficial for me. So I'm only worth 300 gold, whereas that Baron is worth 1500. Playing like this buys time for my teammate to respawn as well, and I could potentially get out using my ult if they all come for me and I land a nice ultimate on them. This here is a similar example. The enemy team was going dragon, so me and Karthus decided we can duo the Baron. This is called cross mapping, and it's an insanely strong strategy when you need to trade objectives because you're down members. For example, in this clip, our bot laners are dead. However, we weren't quite fast enough at doing it, so we had to back off. You can see here, instead of backing off, I chose a different approach. Know that now they have the pick on the mid laner, chances are they're going to start Baron, so I immediately pivot to heading top and pushing top. The last example, they can't stop me if they want to do the Baron fast, and if they come to stop me, then they can't do the Baron. My whole goal here is just to make them chase me instead of doing the Baron. And as soon as I realize all 4 members are chasing me, I ult to safety and instantly pivot to pushing bot lane instead. This just applies pressure to them the entire map and creates momentary confusion which can cause them to make the wrong play. Oftentimes they will see me in such a vulnerable position and think, oh, that's a free kill, and try and rotate to kill me and completely forget about doing the Baron. In this clip here, I'm split pushing bot while the Herald is up. If you're paying attention to the map, you'll notice that there's 3 bot side. Since I've already pushed my wave and don't have any minions to farm, my goal is to just distract them and keep them bot so my team can secure Herald and potentially set up a pick on this Fiora. I was playing just out of their range, but just close enough to make them think that they can kill me. Fortunately, Volibear passed through our jungle, which I didn't expect, which led to me getting killed. A death like this, however, is actually not that bad of a death. Since I've already farmed my wave, they're not going to be able to push the wave all the way to my turret and punish. Additionally, we got a cross-map kill on Fiora, as well as getting the objective, so overall is favourable for us. That's all I've got for today's video. I know it was long compared to the other ones, so I appreciate if you made it to the end. Don't forget to drop a like if you learned something, and any feedback in the comments will be appreciated. Also, stay tuned for the next video, which will be on warding and jungle tracking. Anyways, thanks for watching.
Always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change, in my mind, pick a lane, commit and climb, the only way to win it life, I never miss that stack.